So we've gotten up into the 90s yesterday, and then again we will today. I don't think it's quite 90s yet. In the house right now it's 87 degrees, so it's a little warm. We went from extreme cold to extreme hot. That's typical for Missouri. But you may be able to see, like, this little Brahma right here in the front is panting. They're panting. The Brahmas are panting more than the others. And that's expected, I guess. I didn't expect it while there were chicks like this. But Brahmas are a winter hardy bird, so they struggle during the summer. I mean, 90 degrees isn't going to hurt them. It's when it gets up to 110, then they'll suffer. So, but I wasn't expecting them to pant. Now the other ones, they're panting some, but not near as much. Make sure they have plenty of water, and they drink plenty of water. My thinking is that it's uncomfortable for them. Somebody suggested that we get an air conditioner for the chickens, and I don't know how we can do that. That's almost impossible. We could put them in the camper. The camper has an air conditioner. We can run the generator, but I don't have an air conditioner, and I'm making it. If they get to where they're laying down and they look terrible or something, then we'll put some cold water bottles in there. When we first got them, we put hot water bottles in there to keep them warm. So what I'll do is I'll take water out of the well and then lay it in there if necessary, and then they can lay up against it. But I would have to do that, you know, every half hour or so. But I don't know, by 6 o'clock last night they stopped panting, so it wasn't too bad. The thinking is if it gets too hot outside for these guys, I'll put a small kiddie pool in the chicken run for them so they can go in there and cool off in the summer. Somebody said they'll drown. Yes, that's true. Chickens could drown, but you don't put it in there so deep that they have to swim. You wouldn't even put it chest high. You just put a small layer of water in there where they could lay down in it. They do that in the water here. Last night one of them laid down in the little water, and that's all you want to do. You don't want to make it so deep that they have to swim. That's not the point. I mean, they're not ducks. It's just to keep them cool. And that would give them the option. But we're getting ready to take them outside pretty soon. So this is the coop that we're going to build for, that we're going to use for them. This is an IBC tank. It's similar to the IBC tank that we're using for our water. Now this is not a food grade IBC tank. It doesn't have to be. But you'll see that there is this epoxy on it. That epoxy we're really trying to get out of there. So you might be able to see that we've chipped a lot of it out. I've thought about making the hole bigger so we can go in there and just scrape it out, but it's not too bad. If I take a hammer, this has really been Carolyn's project. I just come out when she seems stumped or needs help turning it over or whatever. So I took a stick yesterday, I just started beating on it on the outside here, and it all flaked off. She took some water and wet it down, and it may have helped. I don't know. Anyway, this epoxy is for fiberglass, I think. So he said it should take about 2 weeks to dry, but it's been a lot longer than 2 weeks. He said we could use acetone in there, and that should clean it up pretty quickly. And we've thought about it, but we're worried that the acetone smell would just make things worse in there. It kind of has a smell. I figure once we get it all cleaned up, it won't smell as bad. But we don't want to make them nauseous. So this will be for the little chicks that we have in there to sleep in. Now there's not going to be enough room in this for all the chickens. They're small enough now that they'll fit in there until about the time we butcher the ones that we incubated. But we were pretty excited about getting them outside pretty soon, not only because it'd be good for them, but we want to incubate another batch. And we're feeling like we should probably get this batch outside before we start another batch inside. Just in case something goes wrong, we want to make sure, like, we don't get this cleaned up. We want to make sure that we don't have 2 batches inside all of a sudden. That'd be 40-something birds. That would be way too much. So we'll get this cleaned up. She's doing pretty good with it. It's not hard to cut. I just took a pocket knife and was able to cut that hole out. This would be where they go in. And then we have another hole there in the bottom you might be able to see. That'll help us clean it out a little bit. So I'm going to stay in the shade today. It's pretty warm and there's no reason for me to be out in the sun recording a video, and I'll just start sweating and then it'll look gross on the video. My shirt's already saturated. But I do want to talk about a comment that I received the other day. They asked how many solar panels would they need to reduce their electric bill. I don't remember what it was. I think they wanted it by 25% or something. What had happened is their electric bill went up. With the inflation and everything happening, they wanted to be able to reduce their bill, and they thought solar panels would be the way to go. I think they seemed pretty new to my channel. It didn't seem like they knew what we were doing exactly, so they must have just typed off-grid living or something, or solar panels in the search bar. So I tried to communicate with them, and I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll make a video, just stay tuned. Of course, they subscribed. They seem pretty friendly. The thing is solar panels don't produce enough electricity to pay for themselves in a reasonable amount of time. It's a psychological thing to me. Let me try to explain all this so it makes a little sense. The solar panels only last about 20 years, and then you have to replace them. You figure a solar panel costs $80. These, mine do. They're 100-watt solar panels. 100 watts per hour during daylight hours when it's not cloudy, or in the wintertime, because wintertime we don't hardly get any electric out of them, it seems like, because the sun's just not up that long. So during the summer you got sun, I don't know, let's call it 8 hours, but in the winter you only have maybe 4 or 5 good hours where you're producing enough electric to do anything with. Well, I have 10 solar panels, so that's 1,000 watts. That's 1 kilowatt per hour. So let's say in the summertime, when the sun's high in the sky, that's about the only time I'm actually going to get 1,000 watts in an hour. The rest of the time, it's going to be like 600 watts. The sun's behind the trees, I don't know, 3 hours in the morning. So you don't get that 1,000 watts. So the best thing I have come up with is get 00 solar panels to run what I need to run during cloudy days. And so on a cloudy day, I make probably 200 or 300 watts, something like that. And so that's all I need to really run my system throughout the day. Now, that's not enough to charge the batteries. I could use a lot more on a cloudy day to charge batteries. So I still have to run the generator a couple hours in the morning, or maybe an hour in the morning, until there's enough sun behind the clouds that the solar panels will kick on. Then at night, I'll start the generator, probably about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, somewhere around there, and run it and charge the batteries up so I got enough electric to get through the night on the batteries. 10 solar panels runs a refrigerator, 2 cell phones, and a fan. There is really not a lot of benefit to getting solar panels other than maybe a backup system. I've said that a lot. I'm not a prepper, but if you need to run a refrigerator when the grid goes down, that's, solar panels are really good to have. That's something with batteries and a charge controller and an inverter, the whole thing. That's something that you may really want to consider to do. Now, a lot of people will buy these solar suitcases, or whatever you want to call them, a jackery. Those will work too, but it's basically the same thing I have. I have batteries, a solar panel, an inverter, and a charge controller. That's exactly what a jackery is. So same concept. In order to reduce your electric bill, the only option is to reduce the amount of electric you use. So I just said the solar panels aren't ever going to pay for themselves. Well, that's true. If I wasn't going to look at it in a different aspect, solar panels and the whole system cost, let's say, $800. Well, when I was using normal amount of electricity in a regular house, it didn't take long to use $800. If I compare the solar panels to that bill, they'll pay for themselves within a year, maybe. Let's call it $80 a month on electric, 10 months, there's $800. But I'm not using the same amount of electric I was in that house. So it's a mindset thing. So I've adjusted my whole life so I don't use as much electric. Wood heat. Most people have some sort of maybe electric heat. I don't use air conditioning. I don't have a TV, lights, or anything. I have a little rechargeable lantern that I recharge at night. We run the lantern for a couple hours at night. I plug it in and charge it back up. Doesn't use hardly any electric. It's a LED. So everything's a reduction in electricity. Not so much that we have to have the solar panels. The reason we have solar panels, the primary reason we have solar panels, is for the refrigerator. If we could get rid of the refrigerator, we'd have so much electric we wouldn't know what to do with. And so we've been trying to can and preserve our food so if anything ever went wrong, we wouldn't have to have the electric. And then I could actually run maybe the well off the batteries, once or three times a week. Let the batteries charge back up from the solar panels. But that's all, speculation and maybes and all that. I mean, the well uses a lot of electric. I've said this in the past. I've asked people to do this 30-day challenge where they just reduce their electric. Get off the grid as much as possible. Get down to a refrigerator. If you have a freezer, you want to keep that freezer going. So you're going to keep the refrigerator and the freezer going. Maybe a tablet so you can watch Netflix. That's what we do. We don't even run it off a tablet. We run it off a cell phone. And we just adjust ourselves. We don't need that big screen TV. Of course, we live in a tiny house. There wouldn't be any place to put it. It's a mindset. It's a psychological thing. When I'm talking about getting off grid, I'm not talking about replacing the comforts that we had. I'm talking about reducing our life. Minimization is key. Trying to minimize everything. The size of the house, the amount of firewood or heat, the amount of electric. So if you'll click that super thanks button, I'd really appreciate it. So if I can inspire you to minimize your life so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.